Hey, Elias, welcome to the show. NDI November 2025, our sixth annual show. Today's show, we're really excited. Actually, today's lineup, because today's lineup is going to include Elias, then we're going to have a dealer case study with Key Code, and then we're going to have BirdDog. So we're giving you a lot more content today. Elias is a founder of Tractus Events, but I like to think of him as one of the great NDI problem solver tinkerers. One of the things you've heard me in a lot of my discussions with during NDI November is how responsive the folks at NDI are to the community itself, not only letting them work on SDKs, but actually hearing what people need and handing off SDKs so they can do stuff. And one of the guys who's been really moving the needle and creating a lot of cool stuff is Elias. So Elias, why don't you tell us about what you do and what Tractus is, and then we can go into some of the NDI secret sauce special stuff that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Oh, it's so good to be here. NDI November. I am absolutely jazzed. So my name's Elias Puurunen. If you don't know me, I started an event company about, man, how many years has it been? 5, 6 now? Used to do event apps, but now we do full service production. And of course, as part of that work, producing our own events and producing events for clients, I'm also a trained computer programmer, went to University of Waterloo for computer science. So I'm in this weird area where I'm do production, but I also make the tools that help us do our productions, help us pull off our productions.
And Elias, if I could jump in,
yeah,
you make those tools because you've run into real world issues that had to be solved.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the reason I got into NDI in the first place is a true story. I had just a generic HX camera that I pulled off of that I got off Amazon, and it was being a little bit janky in OBS. And I saw that there was an SDK, and I said, you know what? Let's code against the SDK. Let's see if I can get my hands dirty here and figure out why this camera's being a little bit uncooperative. And one thing led to another, and here we are. Apparently, we're making lots and lots of tools like multi-view and virtual PTZ. We can go into plenty of detail on all those.
Cool.
But yeah, yeah.
One of the things I want to say is we're not going to go into detail. We're going to do some product demos. But before we get to those product demos, can you share some of the bigger events you've done and how NDI helped you through those events?
Absolutely. So this year, we got the chance to solo produce, 100% produce in-house, a major conference for a client of ours, 3-day trade show plus multi-breakout room symposium. And the previous years we had done all baseband, and we had outside third-party AV companies come in. But this year, 2025, we really wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it fully NDI, end-to-end, no baseband anywhere, except for maybe, final mile runs from a converter over to screens, right? And we did just that. We managed to do 2 breakout rooms, one room that was large room, split it up into 2 breakout rooms, 10, 15 minutes between sessions. It was perfect. We were able to do that. And I'm talking not just cameras. I'm talking we were powering iMag, the screens on either side of the room. We were powering the downstage monitors. We were sending return feeds to remote presenters. We were bringing them in as well. We were NDI all the way.
And it
our
was
entire
a true
signal chain.
Hybrid event because you had remote participants, you had remote viewers, did you have remote participants in the conference itself too, interact. So that to me is right there, your badge of honor here, because I think the hardest thing to do is a live hybrid event with multiple remote viewers and remote participants. So remember, think about this, folks. You got people in a room or multiple rooms. You've got people who are watching it all over the world. Then you're bringing in presenters or people to participate in webinars or on discussion groups. And you've got to manage all that kind of stuff. So it's highly, highly stressful. And I think one of the cool things about NDI and some of the tools that Elias has put out is you made it a lot easier. And I think that's one of the things that I think we should take away from NDI. We created a technology that's really gotten out there. It's established. And now I think we're in phase 2 of NDI, which is we've got the adoption of technology. How do we make it easier? How do we make it solve more problems so that we can even expand what we're doing in ways that we didn't even think were possible 2 or 3 years ago?
Let me build on that one because I was part of another event a while ago. It was a 100% baseband event. They wanted to do it that way. Fine. I was brought in to do the streaming for that. And I remember one of the issues they had was getting a multi-view, a production multi-view up to the producer booth. And I remember that was a full 1 hour discussion and everybody running SDI cables and figuring out how are we going to get the signal. And I thought, if we were using NDI for this one, if we were using AV over IP, this would be a non-issue. We would just
any room with a network
run
jack,
an Ethernet
right?
over there.
Any room with a network jack could be where you stuck that guy.
Exactly, exactly. We get the multi-view. It's a 5-minute discussion. We're done. You know,
So
we'll probably spend more time fiddling with the layout.
Meeting. You went and looked and said, does anyone have a multi-viewer out there? Your answer was, not that's going to do the job for me. So what'd you do?
So I built a multi-view. I built a multi-view. In fact, there it is. That was, so we were using multi-view for NDI to power downstage monitor for that conference I was talking about, the hybrid conference. We put a timer there. We put time of day slides so everybody could see their notes. Everybody could see exactly how much time they had left. So that when the session hit 13:59, we knew we had to wrap up, right?
Yep.
Because speakers never go over time.
Never.
So, yeah, never ever. So yeah, I wrote multi-view for NDI mostly because I was getting tired of controlling all my PTZ cameras using multiple studio monitor instances. And it was one of those instances of my desire to program outweighed my desire to search on Google for a multi-view. If I'm brutally honest.
One of the things I want to add too is that as all great tinkerers do, you solve the multi-view problem and you're like, what else can I do with this tool? So the multi-viewer today it resembles, but it's a lot more than the original multi-viewer you put out there. So talk about some of those other things you added to it besides basic multi-viewing over time. Because I think it's fascinating because one of the things I think people have to realize in a software-based world, which is where NDI is going, you don't have to settle for what you have. You can always keep improving and tweaking. So you can solve a problem today. Doesn't mean you can't use that same tool to solve future problems by expanding it. So talk about some of the things you added to it, and then let's jump right into the demo.
Well, one of the biggest things we added that made life easy for our team was pass-through KVM. So think about studio monitor and screen capture, right? You can, with screen capture, you can turn on keyboard, video, mouse, KVM control, right? So you can then control that computer using studio monitor. So a lot of times for our productions, we need a producer who's got hands on all the different computers at the same time, but we don't want to have 4 or 5 studio monitor instances open. We want to give that person a control surface that they can access any of the computers at any time. Pass-through KVM on multi-view, they're able to put those 4 computers, 5 computers, however many computers they need to up on screen exactly this. We had some computers in the lower right corner there, and we had some of our cameras in the upper section as well. So what we're able to do is say, okay, you can pass your mouse and keyboard over any of these viewports and go and control that computer. So there's no clicking around, there's no, kind of futzing around. Am I into the right machine using studio monitor? It's right there on the control surface.
So I think what's important,
that's also
yeah, I was going to say, I think it's important on that is like some people have a TriCast, it's an all-in-one solution, but a lot of other people, their solution is they're running OBS or vMix on multiple computers, adding what they need. So what a clever solution, because you can still have one spot to orchestrate so much of that. That's one of those big terms that, the tier 1, television networks use and stuff like that. But that orchestration level, I think you really started hitting on something that I know from my discussions with other people during this week. That's something that's really being on the NDI development cycle for 2026. So we're going to see a lot more things where you have NDI tools to help you work with other NDI tools and bring it all together. So enough talking about this. You've got a demo you can do, right?
We've actually been experiencing that demo as we speak.
How do you like that? That's so cool.
So today, actually just a few hours ago, I put kind of the finishing touches. We found one bug just before we went to air, so I'm going to avoid that part of the demo.
Good,
but
good call.
Yeah. But this, what you're seeing right now, my image, this is actually coming through my latest tool, which is Virtual PTZ for NDI.
Oh,
Let me set the scene for you. Let me set the scene for you. You've got a source, you've got somebody that's on Teams. In fact, this is the exact scenario I wrote this for. You're bringing in participants from Microsoft Teams via NDI into your TriCaster, into vMix, into wherever, right? But they're not, and you want to put them into you've got slides on the right-hand side of the screen, and you've got the presenter in a small box, you know, like a 1 or 2 box layout, right?
Yep.
And they're not quite centered, but we're in the middle of the presentation, so we don't want to ask them to shift over, right? So with virtual PTZ, what we can do instead is control the zoom and pan and tilt digitally. So this camera I'm using, BirdDog camera,
has not moved.
It's outputting 4K, and I'm transmitting 1080p 60. In fact, I got virtual PTZ transmitting 1080p 60, so I'm using a BirdDog controller right now to pan, tilt, and zoom into the image. In fact, let me pull up the demo here. I'll bring up multi-view for NDI, or not multi-view, but virtual PTZ for NDI. Let's hit the Go Demo button and see if that brings up my overlay.
There we go.
Perfect, there it is. So let me explain what's going on. I'm actually mixing this all together using vMix and sending this out to Zoom. But my image right now, this is actually being controlled using virtual PTZ. In fact, if I turn preview area on, you'll actually notice the whole image kind of goes dark a bit, and you'll see that there's the part where I've cropped everything out is in full intensity, fully opaque. And then there's some transparency. You can see some transparency. Yep. We're actually taking advantage of the alpha transparency in NDI to kind of do this digital cropping. So if I hide the preview area, so these transitions that you're seeing, if I recall my preset 1 and go home on the camera, that's actually triggering virtual PTZ to do that. That's not vMix. This is virtual PTZ. And if I call preset 3, I can zoom in. If I call preset 2, and I can go back to this digital pan, tilt, and crop. Yeah. So this is all just in virtual PTZ, remember?
Right.
And we've also included a little bit of, I've been making a bit of noise about another utility I'm working on called Relay. I pulled a bit of the code from there just to smooth out this feed a little bit. So it's a well-clocked feed, so vMix is pretty happy. Inside of this web UI, I'll just hide my overlay for a second using the handy-dandy Stream Deck. Shout out El Gato. Stream Decks are awesome. They're critical in our workflow.
And we're going to be selling them now, so we love that.
Beautiful. Gotta love it. I've got, how many do we have at this point? I think I've got 4 plus a plus, and everybody else on my team's got at least 4. We love them. So virtual PTZ, we've got a couple different config settings. You can adjust the crop in pixels, or you can actually, I'm going to set this to control mode crop and adjust the right, and I will actually bring up my overlay again now. So I'm going to say control mode crop, control right, and now I'm actually going to use the PTZ joystick on the hardware device to adjust my crop level.
Nice.
So notice how that's increasing and decreasing. So, and again, this is just an off the shelf. I just took this BirdDog controller, aimed it at virtual PTZ, and it just works. And again, this isn't BirdDog's newest controller, but this shows you that, hey, if you've got existing hardware with NDI, as long as they can all talk to each other, your stuff's probably going to work.
Could I also set those presets to just be in my Stream Deck?
Yeah, you could. So this is the way that we're recalling and setting the presets. I can use Studio Monitor. I can use my hardware controller. I can also go into the Stream Deck and recall those presets. In fact, I'm going to try and hide myself for a second. We'll see if I can get to my buttons live. We'll go localhost 8001. All right, perfect. We're using Companion. And the queues that I'm running, actually, I'm just doing basic HTTP GET requests to recall preset. In fact, I could grab, you know what? I'm just going to grab this URL here. I'm going to recall preset camera 1, preset 1. And I'll bring myself back on screen. Let's see here. Did I get the right camera? I might have. Oh, I want preset index 0. There we go. That'll be the home preset. Oh. Yeah, so you can use HTTP GET requests to do that as well.
That's incredible. I love this, especially because I think that you have Zoom and Teams, which are really great, but they're not fun to watch if you have, let's say, 4 people max. When it gets to be 6, 9, 12, it gets ridiculous. But I think with your virtual PTZ, Teams, and an instance of OBS and virtual camera, I could actually produce my Teams call from a Stream Deck, where if it was me and you talking, and then I want to hit a button to bring in, the whole team, I hit a button and now it goes to the Brady Bunch look. And now all of a sudden, one of the guys is asking a question, I just go to him on a button. I think if we could produce Teams calls in that way, you might get people wanting to use the tool again, because back in 2023, I coined the word, Teams fatigue. And I'm not saying I invented it or Zoom fatigue, but it became a thing. And I think right now when we have people doing remote work, and I'm talking about real remote work, not just a whole little conference where you have to deal with people every day. I think if the person running the meeting had the ability to have a little bit of software running and a Stream Deck, you could really make those calls so much more enjoyable. And now when you're getting the content, one of the things we're working on is we're going to do a whole show with Elgato where everything's going to be pre-programmed with Stream Deck, and we're going to have a camera on the guys doing nothing, watching me, and I'm actually going to run the show from the Stream Deck. And I definitely, I mean, I don't want to plug Stream Deck, I want to more plug software, but your PTZ, virtual PTZ is wonderful. And it's been something that, is in a TriCaster. It's a feature I love, especially, the cropping of the 4K image into multiple shots. I've had guys use one 4K camera like in a bar, and all of a sudden they can produce, a band. They've got the wide look, they've got just the drummer, they've got the singer, and all that stuff. So it's really cool. And we were talking about when we were doing our just setup show to get these going, I think it'd be really cool if you had a vertical crop as one of the options also when you want to take stuff to social media. So great job with that. What other tools are you working on, buddy?
So we've got, of course, there's Multiview for NDI, working on that lots. That just got native HX output, so really happy about that. And it works on the Mac again, so yay, Apple let us publish things. There's Router for NDI. We've got, I'm just trying to think of all the tools. We've got, virtual
while
PTZ,
you're thinking, I want to let folks,
that's going to be released.
We put up to track this, your email, but we put up a little QR code so people can just send on that QR code and go right to your website and check out your tools and download whatever tools they want to check out. So I just want to let everyone know that's what that was.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've also got, so there's also Full View, which takes all your HDMI outputs or graphics outputs on a Windows machine, turns those into NDI receivers that are Discovery enabled. We could do a whole show on NDI Discovery. That is the most underrated feature of NDI. And talking about orchestration, that's going to be a huge part. We use Discovery everywhere now.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I think one of the big opportunities for you, if you want to tinker a little bit, is NDI having audio now really opens up some cool features to like an NDI audio mixer or getting NDI to follow cameras and stuff like that. I think there's a world of possibility for the tinkerers and programmers and guys who are smarter than me to play with that, because I think audio has been one of the biggest, I don't want to say missing, because we always had audio and the audio was great, it was in sync, but audio tools via NDI was something that was missing. I think you're going to see orchestration and audio tools really being what 2026, when we do NDI 2026 next year, I think we're going to talk about the orchestration tools and all the audio tools that came out that made, NDI that much better in 2025, 26.
I'm looking forward to the first NDI native microphone, wireless microphone set, because I'll let you in on another little secret. This microphone that I'm using, NDI.
Really?
Yes, we're using NDI free audio. I built a little Raspberry Pi. I've got a guide all about how to do this. I built a little Raspberry Pi. This is a Hollyland M2S, I believe, just a little, just a little kit. The receiver is just a USB-C receiver. It's plugged into the Raspberry Pi. I'm using NDI free audio to turn that into an audio source that I put on my network. And it just runs. And whenever I want to produce, I just throw on the microphone and we're good to go.
Super cool. I know the guys at Rode would be interested in that opportunity too. We use the Rode mics here, just good mics. But
yes,
Elias, it was great having you on the show. I think what? Oh, we got a question.
Oh.
So somebody asked, what NDI decoders did you use for your video walls in that case that you were talking about?
Which NDI decoders did we use for video walls or for iMag?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we use a lot of mini PCs. We've got physical hardware converters and we do use those sometimes, but I actually find that to get the most control over the signal that is going out to the TV, especially for scenarios where you don't have a decimator available, we use mini PCs, and in some cases we'll use Studio Monitor. That's actually one of the reasons I wrote Full View, was I wanted to just take a mini PC, plug it into power, plug it into Ethernet, plug in the HDMI's, boot it up, and be able to send the signal up to the TV.
When
so
you
a lot
say
of
mini
times we are just
PCs, you
using
mean
mini
like
PCs.
what? You mean like one of those little Nook computers, right? The little box computers. Usually they have Wi-Fi in them and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, just a little Nook.
You're
Exactly.
programming Raspberry Pis too, I heard you mention.
Yeah, Raspberry Pis, I find you can get those to do NDI output. Just the Raspberry Pi just tends to be a bit underpowered for it.
Yeah.
Alternative options like the Orange Pi 5 and anything that's got, you know, like at least 6 to 8 cores on ARM tends to work a lot better. Apple, actually, the M series Macs are fantastic for NDI. They just, the horsepower that those machines have is
So now
incredible.
I agree. I love those from a point of view of they've gotten the next level horsepower that doesn't get enough attention to me. But NDI was always something that Macs struggled with. You've figured out, you've cracked that code a little bit for your stuff?
I think just it seems like there's been a lot of work put into making NDI really try and fly on ARM, which is essentially what the core of
Yep.
the new architecture for Apple Silicon is, right? And so it really shows with the latest Mac updates. I find I don't have performance figures in front of me, but I've heard anecdotally from some of our users that are using multi-view on Mac that they're getting, you know, tens of inputs and not struggling at all, like plenty of CPU headroom. Apple did a really good job making that platform. You know,
super cool. Well,
I have my
thank
opinions
you.
on Mac OS.
Thank you for that information. You did a great show. I thank you for the live demo. That was fantastic. Loved hearing about all the stuff you're doing. You answered a question for somebody, but whenever I have a guest on, I'd like to say, you know, thank you for being on the segment. The floor is yours. You know, talk about your favorite thing, whatever, this show, your show, what you're working on. Take us away. The floor is yours.
I just want to say that if you're, I don't know how many software folks are out there that are going to be watching this, but I would say if you're a manufacturer and you've got some software and you think that it would be beneficial to you to get your signals into the NDI world, download the SDK, give it a try, see how easy it is to integrate it into your products. A competent programmer can get a really cool NDI demo going within a day. The SDK is super easy to use, and the community and the software and the hardware, we are a gigantic ecosystem, right? We all need each other, and we need more, we need more software out there as well to show, really what NDI is capable of. I think we're scratching the surface. NDI is maturing. It's beautiful to see. So I'd say if you've got a bit of a software itch that you want to scratch and get your signals into the NDI world, download the SDK, give it a try. And if not, just start playing with the hardware, start playing with the software, see what you can do. You'd be surprised what kind of flexibility you get with an AV over IP and NDI-based workflow. So I'll leave it there. And of course, shameless plug for Multiview for NDI.
Cool. And once again, I'll bring back the tools. If we can show that page, you could look at it. It's trackthisevents.com/tools. You can go to the QR code to get that information. And you know what? The other thing is if you see something that you think would be cool, drop my man a line. He might want to do it. And I love your shout out to the mic industry. I would love to see an NDI wireless mic and a wireless mic system with multiple mics, because we often find that audio piece is just what's missing a little bit. And anytime you can start, the sooner it gets to NDI, the easier it is to integrate it into other stuff. So absolutely love that idea. Thank you so much for being on the show. And just want to let everyone know, we ran a little long, so I'm probably in trouble, but I think we could be okay on this. Key Code Media is coming up next. We got Kelly Gottsman, who's going to talk about a project he was working on with Key Code Media. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, Elias, for being on the show. And don't miss our roundtable on Thursday. That's what I'm super duper excited about. We're going to have guys from the NDI Council coming on. Still more stuff to give you. Thank you, everyone who participated in NDI November. And enjoy the Key Code and BirdDog shows to follow today.
Hey, this is Jim with another segment for NDI November. I am being joined today by Kelly from Key Code Media, talking about a recent project that they just had with WWTV in Michigan. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, great to be here.
Kelly, can you take a moment, please introduce yourself and the work that Key Code Media does, specifically with the NDI stuff that we're going to be talking about today?
Sure, sure. My name is Kelly Gottesman. I'm a senior project engineer out of our Detroit office. Key Code Media is an integration company. We install all things audio, lighting, video, and everything in between. Large production houses, stadiums, houses of worship, EDU, and all kinds of ancillary institutions for all things video production. So I'm out of the Detroit office. That's our central area combined with Chicago. And we have our headquarters in Burbank, California. We have an East Coast presence as well, Texas, Denver, upper areas of the Northeast and Northwest. So we're kind of expanded and are creating a larger landscape, if you will.
And we've had experience to work with Key Code Media through all of your different offices all throughout the country. Key Code Media is a highly trained, certified system integrator that's working in all of those different applications that Kelly mentioned, government video production, schools, higher education, universities, K-12 schools, and even broadcast media outlets like WWTV that we're going to talk about today. Kelly, I saw a little bit of a case study about this project that you did with WWTV, and I reached out to the team and I said this would be a great thing to talk about because of the NDI technology that really helped solve a solution in taking a broadcast TV studio to a control room 48 miles away. Can you tell us a little bit about WWTV?
Sure. WWTV has been around for a number of years, and their primary studio location was in Cadillac, Michigan. And with budgetary cuts and funding, unfortunately, they needed to downsize, and they were selling their large building in Cadillac and going to just have a smaller control room there, and then move their studio to Traverse City, which is about 50 miles apart. Which they wanted control 50 miles apart or away from the studio, which really lent itself quite directly to an NDI solution in Dante because of video over IP, basically. And we've been doing that for a number of our installations since my hire 4 years ago. So the solution to be able to control cameras, lighting, audio, comm from 50 miles away forced us into this, video over IP, audio over IP, which NDI has been doing for years, and was a really great recipe for getting them where they needed to be. So we teamed up with we've been using a lot of the Kiloview encoders and decoders. In this image here, you can see that there's talent monitors on the MRMC pedestals there that are remotely controlled from Cadillac. Those all have encoders on them. The Sony cameras are NDI ready, so everything's coming down basically it wasn't dark fiber, just fiber pipe, 500 up, 500 back down, okay, between the two locations. And we've been a big fan of the Netgear AV switches, and those baked in profiles with a little special sauce from us really made that solution viable and pretty straightforward for their people to be able to control, producers and directors, a one-person control, if you will, from Cadillac.
And what's interesting about that too is we talk a lot about NDI technology on the local area network. Whether the production studio is 1 mile away or 48 miles away, in this case, it is a fully remote production workflow. The studio that we just saw pictures of is communicating back to the control room here in Cadillac, where the production allows the perfect size production team to still have all the capabilities and everything that they need to do their broadcasts, correct?
That is true. We put in a QuickLink Studio Pro there, which works with a companion app and programmed so many different functionalities that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get from a traditional switcher for them to be able to work.
Great. And I know when you get a remote production studio and control room working like this, that there's always some challenges that pop up along the way. What were some of the challenges you ran into with WWTV?
Well, one being we didn't have dark fiber. We didn't have, a dedicated pipe, if you will. So we had to deal with certain network traffic. We never really got the Dante to quiet down. There was jitter in the line. So we ended up using embedding our audio into our cameras and bringing that back to Cadillac so that they could rip the audio out and, move it down the pipe downstream. So that was one, but also working with their IT folks, which unfortunately they had to kind of downsize as well. So working with them to get them to understand the importance of how to carve up the landscape, the network topology, where I think we have 6 different VLANs so that everything would work, as it should. They had to have an understanding of that so that when we did our knowledge transfer and we move on, that they can continue, updating or keeping their signal flow doing what it needs to do. They also have a Ross Alteryx in the mix that now does NDI. Finally, they got the Dante working with the NDI out of there. So really, it was, I would say, the challenge, because it's such a network contingent design, was in the trenches with just the network between the 2 locations and getting the ISP people involved as well too, their providers.
It's amazing how you have to get all hands on deck and get all parties involved just to figure out exactly what you're dealing with, and then to specify the workflow and the solution to meet those challenges. I know one of the challenges you talked about was reducing the bandwidth so that the NDI streams would go to Traverse City studio successfully. And that's shown on this workflow that we're looking at here. Kelly, can you walk us through this?
Sure. So we're basically, instead of sending the signals back, because we really wanted to have high band NDI, but given the limitations of the fiber in between, we needed to put additional encoders at the Cadillac location to bring the feeds off of the router to the Studio Pro switcher. So these here, these RD3 encoders provided us with the necessary solution, so we could do HDMI or SDI off of those encoders to send it back down to a NDI HX stream.
And I am a big fan of these KiloView products to give you that conversion capability and get everything that you need onto the network. It is a great, they have a whole family of products that fit into this AV over IP workflow. So getting the right product to get that workflow to work is a great thing to do. With KiloView is a good resource for that.
Yeah, and Greg from your house actually kind of was in our back pocket. He really helped us a little bit with some of the designs, so it's nice to have.
That absolutely is helpful. And NDI November, when we talk to all of our system integrators, we talk about our team hosting the shows. We talk about the network of vendors that we have joining us, whether it's QuickLink, VizRT, the team from NDI themselves, KiloView, as we talked about, or all the camera manufacturers. The goal of any good system integrator like T-Code Media is to utilize all these different resources and bring them into your application to make sure everything is going to be up and running and working together.
Yeah, it's a true collaboration with all of our partners.
It has to be, right?
Yeah.
Because every project's a little bit different too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Kelly, I have another slide for you where you talked about the solution for routing some of the talent audio from Traverse City to Cadillac. Can you tell us what we're looking at on this slide here?
So here we have 2 Sony PTZ cameras that are actually bringing in the audio from the Sennheiser wireless system, and that's being sent over, or embedded, if you will, in the NDI stream, and then de-embedded back on the other side in Cadillac, so they can keep their audio between the 2 places or 2 locations moving. Because of the Dante challenges that we ran into, we ended up going into our NDI stream with our audio.
That's great. And we actually had the team from NDI join us on our kickoff show, and Roberto was showing off all the great new features in NDI 6.3. And one of the biggest goals that they're focusing on in this upcoming year is audio over NDI. So even when we look at the different workflows and the design tools and everything that Keycode Media did to get WWTV up and running, those solutions are going to be even easier going forward as NDI starts incorporating and prioritizing the audio just as they've done with video over all these years. So
We're excited about it.
Kelly, when you set out to do a project like this, are there specific NDI capabilities that you look at and things you identify as a must-have to get your clients to a successful solution?
I think once the client understands video over IP, specifically NDI, and how long it's been around. I mean, we're even getting some of our broadcast folks engaged that really, from a baseband traditional, signal flow and understanding video over IP, um, it's a no-brainer. We actually did what we did a proof of concept. Basically, we ran up to Cadillac. I shouldn't say ran up; it's 4 hours, but we went up there. We went up there with a couple of our KiloView encoders, decoders, and camera, just to prove that we could get this signal without barely any latency across the 50 miles. They were very impressed with that POC that we did. That was the initial conversation, and then we started drilling into network and letting them know that NDI has a lot of different tools, that they could use in their workflow for getting picture to multiple screens once it's on that NDI VLAN. And so just showing them how NDI kind of just scratching the surface, they got really excited. They have two primary engineers, and Chris actually, while we were on site, downloaded NDI tools and started playing with it on his own laptop, getting an understanding and a familiarity with some of the capabilities. So just really opening their eyes up, our customers, to video over IPs, again, specifically to NDI and the protocols that come with, and the playability, if you will, for their workflows. We have smaller little stations that we've done NDI solutions for that, they're calling back to us and saying, we just updated our NDI tools to the latest and greatest, and we have these new features and functionality, and we're just like, great, excellent. That's what we want to hear.
So Kelly, I would imagine as a system integrator that the solution itself is only the first part of the success. There is a level of training and support that you are also offering to clients like WWTV to get them to use the AV over IP tools that you're specifying in these solutions, right?
Exactly. I mean, identifying the right tools obviously is paramount for success.
Sure.
But getting our manufacturers that we work with, getting them behind us too, to be there for their support as they grow. And like Donnie from QuickLinks, has been on calls with Pete from up in WWTV on, just getting him up to speed on and making him feel more comfortable with, what's in front of him. The guys from Netgear, we've had them kind of training, if you will, some of their IT folks, because once we're gone, if they don't have a support plan for us, that it's on them to manage their stuff. So Netgear did, actually that's still being scheduled, but they're scheduling a 101 Netgear for them because they have 6 of their switches in the mix. And so we really work side by side with not only the distributors but the manufacturers to make sure that when we leave, they're not high and dry if they have any kind of concern or anything like that. And of course, we do a knowledge transfer on all things that we touch with SOPs, so they understand, because there's a lot to learn. And when we're gone, they need some kind of documentation to look back at and say, oh, that's what we got to do. Okay. And they can always call us. But
Absolutely. And that's one of the big advantages when you work with a nationwide integrator like Keycode Media, being able to pick up the phone and not only having access to the Keycode Media team, but to all of the partners that Keycode Media has built relationships with over the years through installing these projects and getting them working to a successful point. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. For those of
course.
you tuning in, if you have any questions for T-Toad Media, you can reach out to them on their website at ttoadmedia.com or give them a call at 818-303-3900. T-Toad Media is headquartered out in California. Kelly is out of the Detroit and Chicago office, and they have offices available all over the country. So reach out, give them a call, talk to them about your next AV over IP project. Thank you again, Kelly.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you to Keycode Media for joining us to talk about their installation at WWTV. Up next is a great conversation that Gary had with Dan Miall from BirdDog. Again, not just talking about their PTZ cameras and their converters, but also just their role in NDI, the differences between high bandwidth and NDI HX. It's a really great conversation, so we'll play that for you now.
All right, welcome to another episode of NDI November. Today we have the Thunder from Down Under, Dan himself from BirdDog, telling us about all the great stuff that's come out. I'm very excited because over the last week or two, a bunch of new products have hit our warehouse. I know Dan wants to get into those, but we want to start with a little bit of the, I'm going to call it the long history of BirdDog with NDI, because you guys were the first people we knew who were jumping on the NDI bandwagon. In fact, I remember you and I were at a BizRT cocktail hour. Didn't know, I knew you guys as the guys who were the Australian distributors, and you were looking for us to show us this new converter you had. And you were the first people to really embrace hardware as a way to do NDI rather than software. And it's amazing how things always seem to come full circle, right? So let's talk about your history with NDI and with BirdDog, and then we'll jump into some of the camera lineup and some of the new products.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Gary, and it's awesome to be here. I'm really, really excited. And it's kind of funny to think we're talking about the long history of NDI, because it feels like it's just sort of gone like that. We've been through a lot of things in the last, I think we're 9 and 10 years now. But for us, NDI was like this moment that we saw, this is when things are going to change. Before that, we obviously had a bunch of different things that people were using computers for. We had SDI that was getting video around, and we had a pretty good workflow. But as soon as NDI hit, it's like, this is how video changes forever. So we really jumped on that right at the start with our converter, the BirdDog Studio. I still love that product. I spent a lot of time dreaming about how that thing could come to life, and it really has done such a good job. But since then, really, NDI has done an amazing job of getting into so many places and workflows and solutions that we just couldn't even dream of right at the start. I remember when we were talking at that cocktail party, it's like, this is pretty cool. Imagine what it's going to do for live production. But now we see it in everything from live production to meetings and corporate events through to education to medical. It's just sort of bled out through a whole bunch of different workflows. And it's just so cool to see. And what we've been doing along the way is just working out what are the best ways that we can use this cool technology with NDI in hardware, which is absolutely what we started with. And I think that was a game changer. But also looking at this from a solutions point of view, like how do you actually get things to work better for people, not just replacing one box with another?
Now, I'm going to ask the guys to go to the full shot picture with you, because when you see that full picture, there's a couple of monster PTZs on each side of you. We're going to get into the show, but I know every time we put this up, everyone's eyes being caught to the far left and the far right. So just introduce your two new buddies.
All right, so these guys are my new favorite pals. This is the XL on this side, which is probably a pretty good name for it. It's XL in every way, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. But this one might be my new favorite. This is our 04. This is an outdoor PTZ camera that just has all of the fruit in it. It's got every spec that you could possibly want, plus one. It's fantastic. So I'm really excited that these guys are out. We've been working on these for a couple of years now, and to see these come out and be available is just really exciting.
We're super excited. We spent some time with both of them at the NAB New York show, a couple of weeks ago. It was great seeing you guys there. So I want to dig into something that you guys were full NDI when it all started. And you kind of pivoted to NDI HX. And I understand why, because the HX with latency caught up so much. But I still think there's a place for full NDI, especially after my shows with Dr. NDI, with Miguel from NDI. So I want to hear your thoughts on NDI versus NDI HX and whether you see it coming full circle like I do.
Absolutely. So for us, we've always been about finding a way to make a better production. So when NDI first came out, it was always full NDI. There was just one version of NDI, and that really fit the bill. And we spent a lot of time building our hardware to be the highest quality and the lowest latency and the best you could possibly get down a network pipe. And that served us really well and served NDI and the industry really well. Then along came NDI HX. We didn't actually do much with NDI HX at the time because it filled a different niche, which we weren't really sort of wanting to attack at that point. Where it got interesting though is HX3 or HX version 3. And that's where there was a lot of work done by the NDI team to really make it so that it could have low latency and high quality, which are the two tenets that we really wanted. But it also opened up the ability to have smaller, cooler devices as well. So that's when we jumped on it. We sprinkled a bit of our BirdDog magic on it to make it the fastest we possibly could. And we got to the point where actually we couldn't really believe it, but we got NDI HX3 in BirdDog devices to be as fast and as high quality as the high bandwidth NDI. That's really cool for source devices, and especially when you've got workflows where you need to have small devices or something that's not quite so big where you're going to have a big camera setup. So that's when we went with our X series of cameras. We're talking about 18 months ago now.
Yeah.
And those X series cameras have done really well for us in terms of bridging that gap between high quality and really flexible workflows. That doesn't mean that NDI full is going anywhere. And actually that wide shot you had with my two new buddies, these guys, the XL and the 04, both support NDI HX3 and simultaneously high bandwidth NDI as well.
Cool.
So for me, this was a really deliberate move. Is NDI HX is great for cameras in general when you've got a lot of cameras working on a regular network, and it gives you really high picture quality. When you're wanting to scale a production though, high bandwidth NDI really comes into its own. It can scale up to much larger amounts of cameras on a network and video sources on a network, but it also gives you a higher quality when you're going multi-generational as well, where you're going from one version to another. So for us, it's actually horses for courses. There's a great use case for NDI HX. And now that we've got HX3 performing how we want it to do in a live production, awesome. But then also if you've got a bigger, higher end production, or if you're wanting to work on video products that are in the cloud and things like that, that's where the full bandwidth NDI really shines on its own as well.
And you know, that big outdoor camera and the other camera, let's go back to that wide shot for a second, when you're getting into devices like that, I'm thinking sports and live events. And that's where, the full NDI is really needed. And one of the things that I probed the guys earlier in the week from NDI and kind of got a inkling that I'm onto something, which is I think we need high frame rates if we're really going to get NDI going in sports. And I think, for that instant replay and the stuff like that, 120, 240, things like that. And you're not going to get that with the compression of HX3 so fast. But with full NDI, I think if everyone focused on it, imagine if your outdoor camera can now do 120 or 240 frames. Now, all of a sudden, it can truly replace a cameraman in a sporting event.
I think so. Like the nature of NDI is we're not bound in the same way that we are with an SDI cable, where you've got a fixed amount of bandwidth. Once you're on a network, we can massage around what we need. But you are 100% right. With NDI HX, they're kind of defined by the chips that we use inside there and what they're able to do from a compression point of view. And they're really designed to work in what we call regular video frame rates, so 60 frames a second. But when you go to high bandwidth NDI, we can do whatever we like, right? And if you've got a camera like these guys with a really powerful camera head on top, you can do whatever you like. And like you say, sports broadcasting, I think we're seeing a lot of really interesting workflows that are coming out just actually quite recently with NDI. So we're seeing a lot of uptake in the sports kind of tier 1, but also tier 2, and even college sports as well. So I think that's a really interesting space to watch. So I'm glad you mentioned that, actually.
And I think with both those new cameras, we're going to get into it more, you're really opening up BirdDog to be at that premier level that, there's some big Japanese consumer electronics companies that now kind of dominate that space. And I'm looking forward to you guys giving them a little bit of a bloody nose and showing them how you guys can do something smarter, faster, and better. So we're super
Well,
excited
us
about
Aussies
that.
don't mind jumping in and upsetting the apple cart here and there. I think the cool thing that we've done with these is made sure that these higher end cameras, the big guys, can fit into larger productions. We're not trying to make a little walled garden of our own
Yep.
brand. We want these cameras to fit in perfectly. You know, if you've got a studio camera that might have come from those Japanese consumer brands, wouldn't it be cool if you just press a button on the camera to make sure that our BirdDog one matches the overall look of your show? And
Love
we've built
that.
that in. So we want to make sure these things really shine in every way. But yes, some of the features we got in there are pretty hard to kind of have other people pivot and put in. So we're pretty excited about what we've managed to pack into these products.
So while we're on these puppies, let's go into them. I'm going to skip a little ahead. Let's talk about the outdoor camera and the XL, both together. Pick how you want to talk about them, where they fit, because we've kind of opened that door. But then after you discuss those two, I want to jump back to HX3 and some of the things you guys have done that's more for the influencer, independent videographer person with a smaller, less elaborate setup, because you guys have really done something really with it, which I think is kind of amazing. You've gone way up to the broadcast event, live event space. And by live event, I mean doing a football game, doing a concert. It's not necessarily on broadcast network, but that level of stuff. But you've also done such a great job really catering to that person on a budget who needs a flexible workflow to produce a show that's growing from basically was produced, you know, a podcast that they were videotaping on their phone that they're going to try to take to the next level. So let's jump into the two big cameras first, because it's just, I just love them. So take it full screen and take it away, Dan. Pick whichever one you want to start with, but we're going to get to both of them.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. Look, I'm glad you noticed that, and we'll get into the whole portfolio of products that we've built, but they're all really deliberate. But getting on to the big guys, I'm going to start with the outdoor camera. So this is called the O4. What we've done there is really take a look at how people want to use a camera that's network connected, but can be used anywhere. But actually one important point is that this camera, the O4, has got 12G SDI, and it's even got a fiber optic connector as well. So this can work in any workflow. It's not limited in any way to being NDI. But the thing we've done here is really take on what's important. When you're looking at an outdoor camera, you're generally going to have a fairly challenging, or at times have a challenging framing that you've got. There might be some bright areas of a baseball pitch, and then some shadows that are being cut by the grandstand. That can be really hard for cameras.
And it changes over the course of the day, right? What looks good in the morning and the late afternoon, not so good, and vice versa.
Exactly. So we put in this guy a large sensor. It's a 1/1.8 sensor. So it's kind of the step up from what you'd normally see in an outdoor camera, which means you've got bigger pixels, which can handle that dynamic range a lot better. But we've also built in all of the stuff that kind of BirdDog, I like to think we've become famous for. Things like our color matrix.
Yep.
We've got gamma control. We've even got HDR, where we can do bracketing, almost like what you do on your phone, where it'll expose twice on the frame for the shadows and then for the highlights to bring them all in to make them look a whole lot more natural. So we've got a huge amount of control in there. The other thing this has got, which is quite unique, is it's got AI tracking as well. So you can use this as a sports camera where you're looking at the whole field. You can zoom in and watch what the game's going on. But let's say you might have some presentations that are happening, or mid-match you might have a concert that goes on. You can put the camera into auto tracking mode, and it's just going to follow around who the presenter is. From an outdoor camera, that's something pretty unique. Typically, these guys, if you look at outdoor cameras, are more sort of manually operated.
Yep.
This thing's designed to be worked in with a really modern workflow. And our keyboard controller that we have allows you to turn on and off AI tracking. We've even got a cool new feature that's coming in the next version, which is just about to hit, which is trace movements as well. So you can record movements and then play them back, even in the outdoor camera here.
Oh,
you
I
might
love that.
see at the top here, there's actually two lenses, which can be a bit confusing. Is it two cameras? The answer is no. We've got the large lens at the bottom, which is 30 times optical in 4K, but it can also go 60 times optical in HD. So it's a really long lens. The one at the top here, though, is our IR laser emitter. This will light up in complete darkness up to 500 meters or 500 yards away. So when you're using that 60 times optical zoom, even in pitch black, this camera will actually pick up what's going on. So not only is it great for productions and things, but if you're wanting to see what's happening, you know, a long way away, or if you need to get some light into an area that doesn't have any light at all, this camera is going to give you that as well.
Well, Dan,
So
we've got a couple of integrators in the sports who work with, you know, really high-end sports. They've already contacted you through us to get demo units for evaluations and stuff like that. And I just want to reach out right now that anyone watching this show who thinks they've got an application for outdoor high-end sports, give us a call and we'll get you in line. There's not going to be a lot of these in the US because they're big and they're expensive, but we're going to try to work with Dan and the team to make sure they get to the right people who have the right opportunity.
Absolutely.
So let us know the opportunity you're working on and where it fits in, and we'll bunch you, you know, listen, you know, if all of a sudden it's NHL wants to put them in for the outdoor stadiums for the games in the snow, you know, we're going to bump you to the head. Why? Because I'm a big hockey fan. But in general, we're looking at opportunities too, but just where that's going. So very excited about that camera. Now, you mentioned fiber. Talk to me about that. What made you put fiber in?
Well, see, the interesting thing is with a an outdoor camera, you want to put it up on the top of a stadium, or you want to put it a long way back, or typically it's not that easy to put a camera right up front or right next to your vision switcher. So with fiber, you can run this a mile, you can run it 10 miles, you can run it as far as you like. But the important thing is that you can run a cable the whole way to the camera.
And
you don't have to go through network switches.
Right?
That's right. And we've got the other thing that's really cool. We've spent quite a bit of time just sort of thinking about how we can make this easier. A lot of outdoor cameras, you need to have a junction box where you join up all your cables and everything. We've got this great cabling system where you can actually put a cable that's already pre-terminated through the weatherproof connector and just plug it straight in. So you can just order a 300-yard fiber cable that's already pre-terminated. You can plug it in inside the camera and have it completely weatherproof without any tails, without any junction boxes, and just have that thing ready to go.
Dan, I love how you guys are always thinking about what the users are going to want. One of the reasons is because you listen to your users and you listen to what people want, which is what brought you into the other big guy on the other side of you, because that was something that, you know, I got to admire you guys. That's a big jump in going into a much bigger, I don't mean bigger size, I mean bigger space, like a higher end space. And, you know, I really admire you guys for doing that. I think you're going to do great with it. I think it's going to be a killer product. But talk about how you ended up with the XL, because that's a big jump for you boys.
It is, absolutely. So this is a big lift for us, but it's built on kind of all of the learnings we've had along the way. And I guess the lucky thing for us is, as we mentioned right at the start, we've been building products and we've been sort of at home with NDI and IP workflows for the last 10 years. And this guy, the XL, really is kind of the best of the best of what we've learned. As you mentioned, we talk to our customers and get a feel for what they want in terms of a product. And if you're looking at PTZ cameras, there's probably three things that people really want at a high-end product. One is obviously the image quality. You want to have a really high-quality image. So that's, you might sort of tell by the size of this lens on the front, this guy's got some credentials there. This is a 4/3 sensor. So this is the kind of lens that you'd normally see, or sorry, the kind of sensor you'd normally see in a professional kind of photography camera. So it's really large, which gets a lot of light and a lot of dynamic range in there. But we've bolted on the front a 20 times optical zoom, which is really hard to do for a big sensor in a relatively compact size.
Yep.
So that's step one, image quality. Step two is what it's based on. So this is the robotics of it as well. You want to be able to move these cameras on air. So if you've got talent that's shifting around, or if you want to have a bit of dynamic movement, you want to have really fine control. And that's something where a lot of PTZs fall down. And we've been doing a bunch of work, which you see in a lot of our products actually, but we've taken it to the next level with XL as well. So really smooth on-air movements is something really important. Yep. So they're kind of the two things that we really wanted to put in there. The third one is connectivity. We mentioned fiber before. I won't turn this thing around, but it has all the connectors. So if you wanted to work in a NDI workflow, of course, we've got a regular network connection, which is PoE, or power over Ethernet. So one cable does the whole lot. It gives you power, audio, video control, and all that kind of stuff. So it's fantastic. We've also got two fiber connectors on this guy. So if you wanted to run it as a IP-based connection, so a network connection, we've got a fiber optic port for that. So you can run this camera in an event space and run a fiber optic cable, a tiny little fiber optic cable back to your network switch, which could be as far as you like away. So really easy to connect up. But we've also got a 12G SDI fiber as well. So if you're using a more traditional workflow with a vision switcher that's a SDI switcher, we can take this directly out with 12G SDI on the fiber connector and run it in the same way. So we're not just making an NDI camera here, we're making a studio camera that's robotic, and you can use it with any kind of vision switch you like. Adding to that, we've got the high-end audio connectors. So it's got phantom power XLR connections. You can actually mount. It's got a cold shoe mount on the side, so you can mount a shotgun mic directly to the camera as well, which is pretty cool.
You really thought
one of the. Oh,
I say you really thought of everything. And one of the things that I think that I always like to remind people, when you get these bigger sensors, that means better in poor lighting situations. And let's face it, when you're doing a live event, which is what that camera is designed for, sometimes the lighting you get is spectacular, and sometimes the lighting you get for that camera is a lot less than spectacular, right?
Yeah. And the other thing, talking about the lighting and conditions with this, it's also got an optical low pass filter, or OLPF. So this is great for using with video walls as well. So if you have this camera pointing at a stage which has got video walls behind it, you don't get that moire effect, which can be really distracting with a lot of other cameras. So it's that's
really important for. I know a lot of the houses of worship now will have the preacher standing in front of a big video wall with all kinds of, maybe it's him, maybe it's other stuff that's going on there. So we're seeing more and more people not in front of a green screen, but in front of a video wall. So that's an important feature to talk about. And I think my recommendation to you is even though it's NDI November, we got to bump that up a little bit higher on the list of bullets, because there's a lot of people searching for that. There's a very small world of cameras that really accomplish what you're talking about. So I think you're going to open up some opportunities for you. I want to spin back to what we said we were going to talk about a little bit. Now let's get some sushi. Let's talk about the Mackie, because I really love what you guys have done on the lower end. And you've taken the HX3, you've jumped back into Wi-Fi with it, which I commend you on, because if you remember the early days when we first had NDI, we had NDI Sparks that were wireless, and it turned out that it wasn't the Sparks that were the problem, but Wi-Fi itself wasn't really able to handle all those packets consistently. But with the Wi-Fi 6 and stuff that's out there now, we can really get there. So talk to me about how you've really brought this. I don't want to say consumer. I want to say it's for like more influencer, YouTuber, individual, smaller production shows that are realizing, hey, if I go multi-camera, I'm going to get a better show. If I'm doing a podcast, having 2 cameras or 3 cameras just gives you a quality level. It takes you up to the next level. And I love how you've got and you got it right in front of you, that little, the Mackie Live board, because we used to sell a product that we talked to you a lot about called the Sling Studio. It was before really even NDI got popular, but there's a hole in the market for just an easy to use, set it up, run and gun kind of switching device. And the fact that you're doing NDI and Wi-Fi over NDI if you need it just gives you so much flexibility to create whatever you need for your own little individual cast, whether it's a big show or a little show. And I want you to take a little time and talk about those also, because I think it's important.
Sure, and it is for us as well. Like we've spoken about the high-end products, but actually what we've got is a great deal of learnings that we got in these high-end products that we want to bring to everybody that's doing production. And you hit the nail on the head. It's these influencers, people that are actually wanting to up their game from being shot on an iPhone, or in a lot of cases where you're doing videos that are pre-recorded, you have to do a lot of work in post-production to make the video look engaging. But if you're working in live, which is what a lot of people are increasingly wanting to do, to be able to get some dynamic movement, to be able to make the images look really great and have control over it, is something that's really hard to do on a single phone. Where if you have our Marquee setup, so we've got this is called the Marquee Studio or Marquee Control Surface. This pairs with an iPad, and then we've got our tiny little Marquee cameras. And you mentioned, let's get some sushi. The name of Marquee is actually the Marquee Rolls. It's about the same size as a sushi roll. But these guys are 4K cameras that are Wi-Fi, as you mentioned, and they're working with NDI HX3. So super low latency, really high quality. But now that we've got Wi-Fi that can really accommodate that, that's when we stepped in and decided it's time to really make this all happen. So if you're wanting to do a show, you can literally turn up with your backpack with an iPad, with 3 cameras that come in a neat little case. You turn them on, everything's battery powered, everything's ready to go, and you can stream live, cut to different angles, regardless of what kind of content you're creating. And it makes it really high quality, super easy to use, and you can just get the angles that you like and make your show properly engaging rather than just looking like you've got a camera pointing at someone talking.
And you talked about something that, we've been doing with our shows forever, but it's really catching on now. And I think the influencers who are jumping this way on Mackie are realizing is you shoot it live with multi-cameras, but then you edit from the different shots to create your social media 30-second, 1-minute clip. And when
Exactly,
you've
yeah.
got different angles, it becomes much more engaging, especially when you only have 30 or 60 seconds to make an impact. So that whole
Totally.
way of shooting, of going live to do a little post for promoting and stuff, is a really nice workflow, and it works really well. And the guys who are tapping into it are seeing their engagement and their views and everything going up. So if you're an
It's really
influencer or a
important.
podcaster looking to get more likes, increasing the quality, the production quality of your shows is important. Not as important as your content, but when you put great content together with production quality, you can take your show to the next level.
Totally, and I think it's almost if you've only got one of those things, you're not going to win out. Like, you need the quality of the content needs to be high in terms of the image quality, but the production quality needs to be high to get people to continue watching. If you don't have multiple angles to keep engagement or to add focus, if you don't have the ability to kind of make something look like television to make people want to watch it, it just becomes like you're looking at a webcam, and you lose engagement at that point. And that's really where the Marquee solution with our Marquee cameras and also the Marquee Studio switcher with your iPad allows you to make a show out of it rather than just having a live stream. And I think that's the difference.
So NDI November, we talked about the cameras. Let's go full circle again. You guys started with an encoder. You still got a line of encoders. You got the BD Play decoder, which is a smash hit product. I mean, hundreds of them get sold every month, I think. You know, it's the go-to decoder in the industry. And then you're also relaunching Connect a little bit, you know, with some new features and stuff. So let's take that whole bunch of stuff and let our audience know what you got going on there.
Let's bundle all that up together. So converters, like you say, is where we started, and there's still an absolute place for converters inside the NDI ecosystem, but also just in general inside video production. Those are, you know, at some point you need to distribute your video, and that's where Play works really well. It's a decoder where you can send it, plug a decoder behind every screen, and Play will put whatever content you're creating onto every screen in your building. But at the same time, the encoder side of things, you've got a whole bunch of different sources that you want to bring into your production. Not everything's a camera. So those converters give you a really great deal of flexibility. One of the cool things we do with our converter lineup is the encoders all work as a decoder at the same time as well. So you can actually do multiple channels out of a single converter box, which is really cool. What we're now doing, and you mentioned Connect. Connect is kind of my pet project in a lot of ways. I've loved this product since we had the idea. And what I'm really excited to see is where we're kind of getting to with Connect now. To back up a little bit and explain what it is, Connect, the name kind of gives a bit away. NDI is fantastic for working inside a network. So if you've got a local network or a campus network, you can get video to every screen, to every location. And it's a complete game changer compared to SDI or baseband workflows. What Connect does is then take that and grab you all of those bundles of NDI connections that you have around the world and make them all seamlessly connect to each other. The big thing here is that you're able to work within a web page and really easily get video from one location and put it to another place. But not just video, you can make that camera, you can make that video feed behave as if it was next door to you. You get all of the tally indicators, so it lights up green or red when it's live. You get full control over your cameras, so you can move them around, you can shade them. You can have one of our PTZ controllers in a completely different location with a multi-view on it, and you can shade your cameras remotely through Connect. You don't need to have everything in the one place. It just makes this convenience of your products can be literally anywhere. And the two exciting things that are happening with Connect. One is that we've now made it free, and that means that anyone can use BirdDog Connect to do any kind of remote interaction. And that can be remote production, where you have cameras in one location and your video switching somewhere else. But it could also be just to publish a camera to the web page so you can see your camera live and interact with it. We also work with post-production and a bunch of other workflows as well. But Connect literally does any type of connection work that you can think of where you need video, audio, or control anywhere on the planet on any device. So free is good. The next thing that's really exciting is we're building it into the products. And that means that any one of the BirdDog cameras and X series cameras and above, with the new firmware update that's just about to hit, will be able to work directly with Connect. You don't need to have a computer in your remote location. You just turn on the camera and give it internet connection, and you can access that remotely.
So let me get this straight.
Free.
I can get one of your cameras. I can set Connect up in it with the firmware. I can set it up in my studio, ship that camera across the country to some guy in San Francisco, and as long as he's got an internet connection, I can bring him into my show. No special hardware needed.
You literally you post the camera to the person at the other end and say, plug it in, point it in the general direction. We've got it from there. We can do all of the shading. We can do all of the color controls, exposure, framing up the shot, recalling presets, and of course, all the video and audio come through there as well. You don't need a computer. You don't need to set it up at all. It's it can be ready to go. Literally turn on the camera. And
so we've got full NDI, we've got NDI HX, and now you're making NDI easy. And I love that.
Correct.
Because the easier we can make it, the more people will use it. And I think, you know, this is our 6th annual, correct, guys? I think I said 15 different shows already. 6th annual NDI November. And I think one of the things that's really blown me away is how usability and user interfaces and ease of use and setup and discoverability have become such a big thing. And I think that speaks to just how big NDI has gotten so fast. And 6 years is like a lifetime in terms of technology, but it's really done great. And I think that you're focusing on those key areas of connectivity, discoverability, usability. You guys are obviously still in sync with the NDI mothership, and it's great to see that. So Dan, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to ask you before we wrap up though, without getting fired by the guy, oh wait, that's you can't fire yourself. Tell us what's coming new. What's in the plan? What's in the roadmap for BirdDog and NDI?
Oh, so we've been pretty busy. I'm not sure how many people have been following, but over the last 12 months, a fun stat is every 6 weeks we've released a new product. Awesome. Now, at some point, I kind of a whole company needs to take a breath from the hardware side of things, and you can see behind me we've got a great lineup of products. So next year, and what's coming in the short term is all about getting the most out of these things. And I think one thing I like to think we're famous for at BirdDog is adding more features to existing products. We don't want people to have to go out and buy the 2026 model to get the new feature. We'll give that to you as part of the platform that you already have. So for us, there's some really exciting things. I already gave away a little bit in terms of that connectivity, so building in Connect into these products. But really for us, there's a lot of things that are happening on that workflow and usability side of things. We're unifying a lot of how these cameras work, so you can mix between all the different models and make that a whole lot easier. We've got some great new things coming on our controller side of things. So the keyboard controller, which has been a runaway success as well, is getting some really cool new features to make productions a whole lot smoother and a lot more automated. So keep an eye out for multi-camera kind of automation there. And of course, it wouldn't be a roadmap discussion without something around AI. And AI has kind of become standard, and people sort of reconcile AI in the camera sense of being auto tracking. But that's only one place that you can put AI. And I'm going to do a bit of a teaser in that in terms of we see in a lot of what we've done, like we've been building in these features about remote connectivity, AI can really play a lot of roles in that and remote switching and things as well. So for us, it's going to be connectivity. It's going to be convenience in terms of control and how that works. And obviously some AI side of things sprinkled in there as well. We might have a few little exciting hardware products coming out, but from a camera perspective, I think we've got pretty much all the bases covered here. So next year is going to be an exciting one with a lot of things really joining up, and I think we'll have some aha moments with a lot of people when they see that all happening.
And Dan, I got to tell you, for NDI November, we had a bunch of guests, but let's bring this shot up full screen again. I think you've got the best set going of anyone. The stuff it's like an interior designer set the whole thing up. It looks great. I love the big new boys on the end. I love the on-air, everything you've got going there. You look great. Thank you for being on the show. Always wonderful. I know you're coming in from Australia, so it might be 4 in the afternoon. It might be the afternoon for me, but it's the middle of the morning for you. So thank you so much for that. And anytime I have a guest on, I always like to give them a last word on whatever they've got. So Dan, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Honestly, NDI November is one of the most exciting parts of my calendar. And I think this year, what's really been exciting is seeing how NDI is really shaping into many more workflows. Where it started out being just for live production, what we're seeing is so many other places that it can go. And so for me, I'm really excited about the high-end kind of connectivity that we're seeing and where products are going in at the really high end of use cases, but also how it's starting to get into influencer spaces and things as well. NDI is really becoming a commodity or a network standard rather than an option for people to use. So I'm really excited about what NDI November 2026 is going to have. And stay tuned for our announcements, I guess, every 6 weeks or so from here on in.
I think at some point you should take a vacation. So one of the announcements could be 12 weeks apart. But I love your ambition. Love what you guys are doing. BirdDog has been with NDI since the beginning, continues to push the envelope, Dan. Thank you so much for being on the show. NDI November, I think we still got a few more shows left, guys, 2 more shows. So want to thank everyone who tuned in. And once again, we're going to do some prizes and we got some giveaways. And also remember, all this NDI content will be available on our websites later afterwards. Thank everyone who was in the room and watching the show. And Dan, have a great one. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.
It's always great getting to talk to Dan Miel. They're over in Australia, so when they make the time for us to do a show like this, we are super appreciative. So thank you to Dan for joining us. And next up is a conversation that Jim had with Brad Jakielski from 1210 Production Company, talking about an NDI install that they did at Galena Park ISD. So we will play that for you now.
Hey, this is Jim, and I'm back with another segment for NDI November. This time I am being joined by Brad from 1210 Production Company, talking about an NDI production system and workflow that they installed with the Galena Park Independent School District. Hey, Brad, thanks for joining us again for NDI November.
Jim, always glad to be part of the program for you.
It's always a pleasure to have you. I know we've had you on the show before. We have a lot of new people tuning in and joining us this year. So why don't we take a brief moment and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and 1210 Production Company.
I appreciate it. 1210 Production Company specializes in video production, primarily in the educational K-12 space, as well as minor league sports and college sports to make LED screens work. So we'll focus on the video cameras, the replay, and the switchers, and be able to make that workflow be part of either a web stream or an LED video board broadcast.
That's awesome. And I know you're using a lot of the NDI technology and different production systems. And I invited you onto the show today to talk about a recent project you did with the Galena Park Independent School District. Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Absolutely. Galena Park Independent School District hosts 2 high schools within the state of Texas, Galena Park as well as North Shore, and they share the same stadium. And the NDI technology really helped take this project to the next level, because looking at that drawing, you can see that the stadium and how vast of size that is. A lot of people think of a high school stadium as maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people. This has the ability to hold over 10,000 people. And we had the design made, and then as the school got more involved in the project, they said, well, we have all these concession stand TVs on the concourse that we'd really like to be able to show the game on while people are getting their food and their drinks and be able to see the game in real time. And without having to add any additional cables, we were able to utilize all of their existing campus IT infrastructure to distribute their signal out of their TriCaster and get it to their monitors instantaneously. So it was really a cost savings for them very late in the project that was able to be a great benefit to the school district as well as their fan experience.
And Brad, I think that's one of the things we talk a lot about with the NDI production world is not only does NDI give you access to all of your video sources throughout the workflow, but it also does act as the distribution model, allowing you to take the signal from any of those cameras, production systems, and send those over to the digital signage like you did with the TVs and the concession stands and other points throughout the stadiums, right?
That's right. And that they have it at their disposal to get it wherever they want to on the campus as well. So when the idea first came up of how are we going to do this? We got to get fiber from one side of the field to the other side of the field, and we got to bring in all these extra converters, and how long it's going to take to get from the cable from point A to point B. And then we just started asking a couple of questions in the school district to say, what do you currently have over there? Is there something that we can utilize to make it a little bit easier for them? And they said they have the same computer network all over the stadium, and that it's all connected over fiber, and it just like extending it via a simple network cable. And it was truly within 5 seconds of connecting all of the switches together, they were able to see all of their content.
That's great. And when we're talking about a stadium of this size that's fitting more than 10,000 people, it's not your typical, high school sports field install. This is a real sports venue. It is Friday Night Lights, where these football games are being broadcasted. They have the LED displays in the stadiums and venues themselves. They have the routing with the TVs that Brad talked about. But that's all being managed and controlled in a control room like what we're looking at here, right?
That's right, and it's really all student-based at this venue too, which makes it even more special for the school district. They have one director who teaches the children how to do video broadcast, and they're able to take that to get jobs and better careers and scholarships because they have real-life examples. These are the stadiums that are built on Friday Night Lights as a theory of the show that gained so much notoriety. North Shore High School has been to 6 of the last 10 Texas state championships at the levels that they've been in, whether that was 5A or 6A. They're a perennial powerhouse within the state of Texas. And they get the attendance, and they just, the technology continues to improve and be able to be an enhancement to their fans and their teams to show all the hard work, not only of the student athletes on the field, but the students doing the production as well.
Absolutely. And I know we're looking at the VisRT TriCaster systems. It's really giving the students access to the same tools that are being used in true broadcast environments and live event productions, where they can take the skills that they're learning at the school district and bring those into their advanced college education and even broadcast careers, right?
And you're seeing more and more broadcast stations and the colleges go to the VisRT platform because of how user-friendly that it is and familiar that the students are. So it's not that the students back in the 80s and 90s were using antiquated technology and that it was hard to go from the educational system to a true broadcast setting. Now you're seeing the same technology be used from high school through broadcast, and games to ESPN are being broadcasted with the same technology.
Absolutely. Brad, thank you so much for joining us to tell us about this workflow and how NDI production has really played into that. For our audience who are tuning in today, if you have any questions about the sports production environments, school production workflows, any kind of live event production, you can reach out to the 1210 Production Company at 1210productioncompany.com. Their phone number is up on the screen here as well. You can always reach out to Brad and his team. Brad, thank you again for joining us.
As always, Jim, thank you.
Thank you to Brad for doing that interview and talking about that case study. Again, it's just great to hear about people that are using this technology day in and day out. That's all that we have for today, so thank you for joining us. But we still have quite a few more shows left for NDI November. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, I will be joined live with David Doku from Canon to talk about some new exciting announcements from Canon. And then we will have yet another System Integrator Spotlight after that from TFS Broadcast. And then on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we will be having our NDI Advisory Board Roundtable. We're going to have 3 members from the NDI Advisory Board joining us, and it's just going to be a lot of great information where NDI is now and where NDI is going in the future. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And then after that, that's when we will be announcing our prizes. We have a couple cameras that we're giving away. We have some VisRT training that we're giving away. So definitely, if you're watching on any other platform other than Crowdcast right now, make sure you head on over to ndinovember.com because that is the only way that you can get entered for your chance to win one of our prizes. That's all we have for today. We will see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern. Thanks.